Well, hello, everyone. My name is McKenzie Kane with the National Sports Media Association, joined by the 2023 Missouri Sportscaster of the Year, Chip Caray. Now, Mr. Caray, thank you for speaking with me today.
Hey, McKenzie, thanks for having me.
Now, if you wouldn't mind just starting off with a brief introduction, can you walk me through what you're currently doing in the world of sports broadcast?
Well, my name is Chip Caray. I'm currently the TV broadcaster for the St. Louis Cardinals. Prior to that, I was in Atlanta for the Braves for about 20 years. Before that, I was with the Cubs for 7 years. Before that, I was with Fox Sports National and the Seattle Mariners for 3 years, and the Orlando Magic for 7 years in the NBA. I'm a graduate of the University of Georgia in 1987. I'm 59 years young and hoping that the Cardinals have a great season ahead of them here in 2024.
Now, this is actually your first time winning this award. Can you just tell me what this accomplishment means to you, being selected by other sportscasters in the area?
Well, I was very pleasantly surprised knowing the other folks that work in our market and in the media in St. Louis. John Rooney, for example, is my buddy who works for the Cardinals on KMOX. He's an outstanding broadcaster. Polo Asensio does the same. Dan Kelly for the St. Louis Blues is an amazing announcer and a great hockey guy who I've listened to for years. So to even be mentioned in the same sentence as guys like that is a real honor, especially being new to the market as I was. But this is not an award about me. This is an award about the people I work with. We've got a great team at Bally Sports Midwest. Fantastic production crew. I have amazing partners that I get to work with every day. And whatever success I had is because their shoulders are very broad and their backs are very strong.
Now, like you mentioned, you've covered a variety of different sports. Can you just walk me through the strategy you approach, or how the broadcasting style varies sport by sport?
Oh, I think it's the same. I think in our business, we complicate things way too much. I think ultimately we're gatekeepers, right? We're supposed to bring the game home to the fans, especially on the TV side where the pictures are there. Our job is to hopefully accentuate and make it more fun and exciting and accessible for people to understand what's going on. We're conduits between what the team is trying to accomplish and the fans who want to absorb that content. Really, we just try to make the calls and get out of the way. Ultimately, our personalities are what people are drawn to, hopefully. And whether it's basketball or football or baseball or radio or TV, I just try to be myself to the best that I can. And I think so far people have enjoyed that. Ultimately, that's really what our business is about. It's a personality based business, and I can't be Harry Carey or Skip Carey. I got to be me, and like it or not, that's what I do every day. And I'm very, very grateful that people have accepted it so far.
Now, just a few days ago, you had a fresh face join you in the broadcast booth for the Cardinals Cubs game, Joe Buck. Now, not only does your grandfather and his father go way back, but you two are also award winners this year with the National Sports Media Association. Can you just walk me through the emotions you felt last Friday?
It was great. Joe's been a friend for a long time. We've never been in the same booth together. We've worked together on the same broadcast. That again with Fox when he was doing the World Series, and I was hosting the pregame and postgame shows for the network. But he's a tremendously talented guy. He should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame after calling 24 World Series. I mean, it's silly that he's not, and I hope that that happens for him in the days ahead. But to spend some time with him on a personal level, I think was really rewarding. As you mentioned at the start of our chat, our schedules are such that we very rarely saw each other. But to get to sit down and share stories about his dad, who I grew up listening to, and my grandfather, who worked with his dad in St. Louis, was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed getting the rib and saying, look, I listened to your dad as a kid with the AM transistor radio in St. Louis, and my adult sons have listened to you growing up, Joe. So that was kind of a fun interaction that we had, and hopefully Mother Nature will cooperate the next time we try to do it. We got rained out at the ballpark, but we still got to share some stories, which was a lot of fun.
Now, can you just bring me to that moment in your life when you realized that this was the industry you wanted to pursue as a career?
Yeah, like everybody else that's male and loved baseball, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I found out I couldn't hit a curveball pretty quickly, and I figured, well, if I'm going to stay in the sport, I better find something else to do. My parents were divorced. I grew up in St. Louis. My dad was doing his thing in Atlanta, and when I was in high school, I'd come down for high school visitation, and I was working as an intern at WTBS, which carried the Braves games every single day. I had a night off, and I was sitting in the TV booth, excuse me, the radio booth with my dad. He had the call of the Dodgers and Braves game in 1983. And uh, Bob Watson, who was a terrific hitter in his day, came off the bench, hit a pinch hit grand slam home run to beat Steve Howe, who was a left handed reliever for the Dodgers, and win the game at the bottom of the ninth inning. Traffic was nuts. We sat around at the ballpark, sitting with Vin Scully and Ross Porter and Jaime Herring, talking about the game. I sat and listened. But we got in the car, and around midnight, we're driving home once traffic cleared. And the station announcer on WSB in Atlanta came on at midnight and said, "Midnight in Atlanta, 72 degrees. Last night, the Braves beat the Dodgers. Here was Skip Caray's call." And I heard that call, and it was the proverbial lightning strike up the back of your neck, the hairs standing on top of your head. And I said to my dad, "That was awesome." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, that call, it captured everything that was so exciting about that game. And I said, "I'd like to do that someday." And I'm waiting for my dad to say something, and he didn't. We drove home in silence for the next 15, 20 minutes. We got to the house. He poured himself an adult beverage. I went down and brushed my teeth, came back upstairs, and he said, "Were you serious about what you said in the car?" And I said, "Yeah, I was." And he said, "Okay, we start tomorrow." And he called Bob Wussler, who at the time was the president of Turner Sports or Turner Broadcasting, and he arranged for me to have an interview to do an internship. And I got started on the production team, coiling cables, running camera, learning how to run graphics and all of that from behind the scenes. And that's where the bug really bit me. I understood how hard those folks work and how much they have to do to make goofballs like us look good on TV. And being around such passionate people really stoked a fire for me, and it hasn't stopped since.
I mean, like you said, your father was the one who lit that spark in you, who gave
Mm-hmm.
you that bug. Were there any other mentors that you looked up to that guided you along the way?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, it does take a village. I wouldn't have gotten started probably as a major sports broadcaster if a man named Bob Neal hadn't mentioned my name to Pat Williams. Bob Neal was talking with Pat at the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game in Houston before the Orlando Magic came into being. Bob Neal was a great broadcaster, Turner Sports, did the NBA on TNT for years, college football and the like. And he said to Pat, "Hey, I hear you're looking for an announcer to do your games." And Pat said, "Yeah, we are. Do you have anybody in mind?" And he said, "Yeah, Chip Caray." And he said, "You mean," Pat said, "Skip Caray? Want to leave Atlanta and come do the games?" And Bob said, "No, no, no, no. This is not Skip Caray. This is his son, Chip." And Pat said, "Oh God, there's another one." And so he dropped my name, and Pat Williams called me and gave me an internship. Gave me an opportunity to be the first ever announcer for the Orlando Magic in 1989. Steve Stone and Arnie Harris in Chicago. Steve, my longtime partner with the Cubs as an analyst, worked with Harry forever, was so good to me. Arnie Harris was the producer and director of Cubs baseball going back to when Jack Brickhouse was doing games. He was hugely influential, as was John McDonough, the marketing director for the Cubs at that time. My partners in Atlanta all had a huge influence on me. Joe Simpson, Pete Van Wieren were guys that taught me how to be a pro and how to do the games every day and not wear out your audience, hopefully. So I've really been blessed to work around really wonderful people who have helped me along the way. And hopefully, as I continue to move along in my dotage, I'm doing the same thing.
Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Sometimes I fear that writing is a lost art with my generation. And I grabbed a quote from Friday's broadcast that I had never heard before and instantly became one of my all-time favorite quotes from you. Baseball and life, the whole purpose is to come home. Joe's back home. I'm home here in St. Louis, and you at home will hopefully have as much fun as we plan to have. And just that use of wordplay. Can you walk me through how vital storytelling and just writing in general is in this industry?
I think it's hugely important, although we write verbally. We don't write with a computer or a keypad or a pen or pencil. We paint pictures, right? And I think the really talented people like Joe, who have an amazingly concise way of illustrating a point, are the folks who are the superstars in our business. Al Michaels, do you believe in miracles? Yes. I mean, what else can you say? Joe and Jack Buck, we will see you tomorrow night. My dad would say, if you promise to patronize our sponsors, you can go walk the dog when the game was 17-1 and the Braves were losing. Yeah, it's about having fun with the language. We're handicapped in a way on TV because the pictures are there. The guys and gals on radio who are able to paint pictures and use the words and play with language are really fun to listen to. I still try to do it, and frankly, I'm grateful to finally work in a place where that kind of creativity is not only allowed, but it's encouraged. There have been places where that hasn't been the case. And as I said, it's part of my personality. I like to talk. I like to sell the game. I love to talk about the joy of being at the ballpark every day and the amazing accomplishments that the guys do on the field. But saying ground ball to second the same way every time 50,000 times gets boring even for us, and I'm sure it does for the audience too.
Now, I mean, what's the strategy in a situation where the game is that 17-1? How do you keep the audience engaged?
Well, there were two simple rules that I was given, and it's the set of rules that my dad and grandfather applied pretty much every day. Our job is first and foremost to inform what's going on, ball or strike, safe or out, home run, who's winning, who's losing, and why. Right? That's part and parcel and the basic part of the job. But when it is a bad game, there's sponsors that are paying a lot of money that want people to stick around to the eighth inning to see their commercial. So our job then is to entertain. So what's the strategy? You try to make it fun and you try to make it light. Last year, the Cardinals did not have a very good year. I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one was we're in Pittsburgh, we're getting beat. We see a fan sitting in an empty stadium, but he's got a red, furry Cardinals bird hat on. And I said to Brad, we've got to get those hats. So our marketing staff in St. Louis got us the hats when we came home. We wore them on the air when we were losing again. We called them our rally bird hats. They didn't work very well, but it kind of went viral. People in St. Louis saw, well, they're still having fun even in a bad season. So this year they had a 25,000 bird hat fan giveaway at the ballpark, and it was one of the first games that sold out. So you never know when you see something goofy that might turn into a money-making opportunity for the team and a way to express that, okay, we're all in this together. We get it. Let's take the pressure off and talk about something else. The second one was against the Giants last year. Their shortstop is named Thairo Estrada, and he loved eating the peanut butter Crustable sandwiches. And so it's early June. We're getting killed again. And I said to Brad on the air, I said, Brad, this leads me to maybe the most important question that I have for our relationship going forward. You know, Estrada loves these peanut butter sandwiches. I said, crunchy or creamy? And he went, creamy. And I said, I turned my back on him. I said, we shall not speak again. Crunchy peanut butter is the way to go. So we had a 2 inning talk on the merits of crunchy versus creamy peanut butter. You have to be silly. You have to have the, as they say, a lot of little boy in you to do this game. And if you can compartmentalize the importance of being an adult and representing $1 billion franchise, that's one thing. But you have to be a 13-year-old prepubescent adolescent boy to also get along and have a great time and survive the rigors of a 162-game season. And again, we Brad and I especially have no problem doing that part of the game.
Well, I mean, what would you say was the best piece of advice that you were given throughout the course of your career?
Be yourself. As I said earlier, I grew up in a time where, fortunately for me, not seeing my dad or Harry very often, I got to see them on TV all the time. I got to know them through the magic of television and cable TV. The sad part of that was I didn't really get to know them as people very much until I became an adult, and I missed that, and I'm sad about that. But it allowed me the power to understand that I couldn't be either one of them. If I wanted to do this business, I had to be myself. And I think that's the first thing that they said. Don't be a cheap copy of Vince Scully. There's only one of them. And go out and be yourself. You have to lay that on the line. You have to expose your soul to an audience. And they're either going to like you or not like you, but at least be genuinely you. And the second thing was be honest, tell the truth, especially on the TV side. Fans aren't dumb. They're smart. All they want you to do is shoot straight with them. And if you do that and you're yourself and you're fair, I think more often than not, they're going to welcome you into their home. And it certainly worked for my dad. It certainly worked for Harry. And knock on wood, it's working for me, I think.
Now, I'm curious, and the answer may very well be the same as the last. What would you feel is one of the biggest rookie mistakes you see young broadcasters make when they're trying to just tap into the industry?
Oh, I don't know that it's up to me to judge what mistakes there are because I don't look at them as mistakes. It's learning. I made plenty of them. I mean, when I started with the Orlando Magic, I was a baseball guy doing basketball. I knew nothing about the game. I was worse than the team, and the team won 15 games. I have no doubt in my mind, were it not for the patience of Pat Williams and the audience and my partners in Orlando, I'd be selling cars right now. If there was Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, there's no way. I think today's broadcasters have it so much harder than we did because they're like umpires. They're expected to get these jobs, be perfect right away, and then get better. And it's not easy. It's a really, really hard thing to do. To, as I said, find your voice, get used to the rhythms, work with new people, be in a new city, get used to the travel, maintain your relationships with wives and children and family members. There's a lot going on besides just holding a microphone and talking about home runs and 3-point shots. It's really, really tough for them. I don't envy them that part of it. My sons are going through it now. One's in Oakland, one's in AA in broadcasting, and they have to be very aware of what social media is and isn't. And I don't envy their generation for the benefits I had of just being slowly developed and anonymous, working in Orlando and making my mistakes along the way and hopefully climbing the ladder.
Now, I know it must be a difficult ask to have you narrow down all the games you've covered to a favorite, but was there one that was just particularly memorable?
Well, I don't know if I can give you one. I'll give you a couple of them. One was the game that I did with my dad and my grandfather in Chicago. The three of us were the first three generations of broadcasters to work a major league game. Looking back on that now, it went by so quickly. I would love to go back and, knowing what I know now, sit down at the table and talk to them about their experiences in their life and what everything meant to them. Because, as we've said as a family, baseball's given us everything, but it's just this tiny part of who we are. And it's the who we are part of Harry and my dad I would have liked to have gotten more of. This past year in Oakland, I got to work a game with my son, Chris, who was starting his career with the Oakland A's. He's doing 70 games on TV, and he's part of the fourth generation of major league broadcasters in our family. That was an unbelievable thrill. Working a game in the Cape League with all three of my adult sons, or all three of my sons, I should say, two of them adults, one's 15, was amazing. We all got to spend time together. And then, any game I got to do with my dad was really special. I'm sure anybody who sits in the room and is going to watch this interview would say their dad hung the moon for them. Mine did. I didn't know him all that well growing up, but as I became an adult, went to college and started in the business and got to be around him and then ultimately work with him in Atlanta, being able to drive him to the doctor, pick up his dry cleaning, buy him lunch, bring him his suitcase on the road, sit down and have a beer after a game as an adult and a colleague was a real thrill. And the fact that he got to know my wife and kids was incredibly satisfying, obviously. Things that I took for granted, maybe all of us take for granted in our business, that's what was more important than any silly game. But to your point, anytime I got to work with dad was a real treat.
Well, on that topic of dads, when I told my dad I had this interview, he urged me to ask one question, and he wanted to know
Sure.
your thoughts on Will Ferrell's SNL impression of your grandfather.
I love it. I actually love it. My dad wasn't so fond of it when he first heard it because he thought Will was making fun of him, but he wasn't. I think it was an homage to how Harry's style had evolved in his older years. When Harry was young and doing games, he was like Jack Buck or Joe Buck and Bob Costas working together. I mean, he was at the top of his game. The peak of his powers as a radio announcer were incredible. So much so that even current announcers in Major League Baseball tell me all the time that I listened to your grandfather as a kid, and I'd go to Busch Stadium and I'd see the ballpark and I'd walk in and I'd go, what a disappointing place, because Harry made it feel like and seem like the Roman Colosseum, and the whites on the uniform were so white they were blinding, and the grass was this unbelievable color of green. And they'd walk into the stadium and go, what a dump, because Harry was such an unbelievably good salesman. But after his health problems later in his life, I think he sort of embraced the fact that he could just let go and have fun. He always used to say, you can't beat fun at the old ballpark. And it was that goofy side, that unstressful side that I think Will Ferrell was channeling into. And when my sons were 6 or 7 years old, they absolutely loved seeing him do that routine on SNL. And when Joe Buck was in the booth the other day, I had the Harry glasses ready, and I was going to ask if the moon was made of spare ribs, would you eat it? And we didn't get a chance. So maybe that'll happen down the road. But kudos to Will Ferrell, because it's a wonderful homage. Imitation's the sincerest form of flattery and all that. I think it's great. My family loves it, and I'd love to meet him and shake his hand and say thank you for it.
Now, I mean, Mr. Caray, before I let you go, do you have any advice for young aspiring sports broadcasters and reporters like myself on how to stand out in the industry?
Hey, you just go and be you, because you are the perfect version of you. There's only one of you. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be anybody else. Find your own voice, whatever it is. Have the internal power and strength to go out and see the world your way and write about it. March boldly forward. People like us have paved the way for you. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Hopefully you'll stand on our shoulders someday, and carry our business and industry forward. It's a great way to make a living. It's a wonderful job. The people you meet, the places you go on someone else's dime. are remarkable, and the memories you make will last a lifetime. And if you do it well and write it well or report it well, you live forever because your words will live on far past our time on this planet. So be yourself, have fun, and carry that torch proudly forward, because we're handing it to you for a reason. We believe you can do it.
It's another instance of wordplay, huh? Carry on that torch.
Try my best.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for just taking the time to sit down with me and answer some of my questions, and congratulations on the award.
Thanks, McKenzie. It's a true honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.